Part 152. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1516. Greets. Two disciples advanced at the same time, which inevitably shocked everyone up and down the Mage Tower. Countless people stretched their heads to look. Not only watching, but also whispering and asking each other. That little girl from the Nature Order, when was the last time she advanced? What is her research direction? What papers has she published? The Nature Order is not used to publishing papers regardless of anything, but this girl is a disciple of Master Nordmark, so her habits may be different. Let me search it and see. Yes. The speaker pointed and tapped quickly on the magic crystal panel. This Mage Tower Center brought from Neva's stores a considerable number of documents and papers, which can be retrieved and queried by magicians. Although the latest content is not available yet, connecting to the Tower Spirit of the Tower of Babel and transmitting data in real time is too expensive. But fortunately, this Mage Tower has just been built, the Tower Spirit has only been brought here recently, and the database is relatively new. So the mage poked and entered Anavia's name into the search, and tailing quickly gave the answer. He dodged his body and let the magic crystal project a bright light. She has published several papers and chaired several projects. She has presided over the previous research and development of streptomycin, as well as the scope of streptomycin treatment of diseases, usage and dosage, and a series of related applications. A group of magicians rushed up to watch. If you are far away, stand on tiptoes and throw the secret eye forward, or simply call the Tower Spirit and let the Tower Spirit project the message. No wonder she advanced so quickly. However, these projects are not in line with her recent research direction. The potential of the previous projects has been exhausted. I remember that she has been working on penicillin-related projects since she started. It is very amazing to be able to reach level 9. So what can I say? I still have to follow the teacher. Look, the teacher gave me a new project, and I started to advance. The magicians murmured in admiration. Suddenly someone asked again. What about that boy from the Necromancer? He published the paper. Basically, all of them are in the medical field, and many are in the hospital management field. For example, how should patients in the hospital be sorted? In addition to fortune telling, is there any way to quickly identify patients who are about to die? For example, what kind of patient needs what kind of examination at the first time, and what kind of examination should deal with what symptoms? For example, for certain inspections, how will the results change when faced with high-level professionals? What should be paid attention to, and what changes should be made? The vast majority of papers were not published in any journals, but were quietly entered into the database of the Tower of Babel. Occasionally, there are a few articles published in journals in the medical field, and the number of citations is pitiful, and they are almost unnoticed. Can such a paper be advanced all the way to level 8? It seems that we have ignored his paper before and should pick it up and study it carefully. So he advanced as a healer? It's over, Black Crow Swamp is crying again, and finally there is a magician from the necromancy system, running all the way to the healer, never looking back. Stop talking about this. What about the bet we made before? Between these two, who will advance first? The retreat time is almost the same, it can be regarded as the same day, so, both sides are tied. No one wins. It can't be calculated from the beginning of the retreat. The settlement of bets can't start until the retreat is finished and the formal advancement is confirmed. Gretel lay beside the Tower Spirit, watching with great interest. All the inquiries and discussions from the magicians were conveyed to him by the Tower Spirit without missing a beat. The master of the Mage Tower, the person with the highest authority in the Mage Tower, is so happy. As long as he thought about it, no news in the entire Mage Tower could escape his eyes. A female elf with emerald hair sat opposite him, staring closely at Gretel's expression, turning a blind eye to the various lights, shadows, and sounds projected by the tower spirit. After Gretel finished watching this round, her attention shifted, and she immediately asked impatiently. "Both of your disciples have advanced. I heard that if a mage can advance, their research must be on the right path, so, you are about to produce results. When can you help me? Let's take a look at your daughter." "Well." Greet scratched the back of his head helplessly. "Let's wait until they advance. When they advance, I'll call them over and ask them to see how far their previous research has gone." It was nerve-wracking. Anivia had previously been working on in vitro fertilization and in vitro fertilization of lizards, but she was still a long way from being able to achieve pseudo-dragons, sub-dragons, and dragons. Moreover, what allowed her to gain advanced insights was the development of fertilized eggs and the differentiation of embryos. This direction is not completely different from the reproductive assistance of the dragon clan, it is completely opposite. Forget it, let me see if there are any surprises at Leon Carlos's place. Greet politely asked the emerald dragon, who was worried about his daughter's fertility problems, to leave, and immediately called Tolling to investigate Carlos' situation. At this glance, I was shocked. Black mist rolled around Carlos, and the power of death was gathering and surging around him. Sometimes it lingers in a ring, sometimes it curls up into a ball, and sometimes it outlines complex three-dimensional patterns. After a while, the power of death that kept gathering gradually dispersed. Stretch, lengthen, flow, layer. Gradually, it can be seen that the power of death has condensed into a human form, and it is a human form with bones, muscles, circulatory system, digestive system, etc., etc. Gretel held his chin up and looked at the images given by Tailing with great interest. Interesting, are you trying to create a human being? I am using the will of the world to build a human form in the core of meditation. What is Carlos trying to do? Build a human form using the power of death? The secret is, he must not put this thing into his own meditation core. If a living person puts the power of death into it, there will be big problems. Unfortunately, Leon Carlos had already started the final meditation before advancing, adjusting his state and preparing for a hard leap to cross the 8th to 9th level. All Gretel could do was communicate with the tower spirit and provide sufficient energy for the meditation room where he was, so that he would at least not make mistakes due to lack of energy. Gretel sighed, opened the long window, and jumped out. This disciple has seen it, and that disciple should also see it. As a teacher, a bowl of water must be leveled. The place where Anivia retreats is in the woods a few miles away from the Mage Tower, where the nature priests gather. Gretel launched his flying technique and reached the sky above the forest in a moment, looking down. Around a small wooden house, the power of nature is gathering in large numbers. The trees were swaying, the weeds were growing wildly, and it was obviously autumn, but many flowers that only bloomed in spring and summer were blooming crazily. What's even more amazing is that large numbers of animals are rushing towards us. Pairs of hares emerge from unknown holes and start mating on the spot in the shadows in front and behind the wooden house, in corners and under the eaves. Two small groups of wild deer ran over from different directions. The male deer and the male deer impatiently mounted on the female deer before they even had time to fight. The she-wolf howled one after another, and the wolf king was very busy. While doting on the she-wolf one by one, he also let out a low roar to warn the male wolf who wanted to sneak into the grass with the she-wolf. Gretel. Anivia, what are you doing? Why does the aura that escapes when you advance appear like this? You were observing the differentiation of embryos before, why did you turn yourself into a walking sildenafil? Rush up along this route. If you really succeed, should your title be the goddess of fertility, or the queen of giving birth to children? He was stunned in the air, and the nature priests who came out one after another from the surrounding wooden houses also had eye-opening expressions on their faces. After a moment, Ashu appeared from under a tree and waved to him vigorously. Hey! What have you taught her? Why did it suddenly become like this? I have been in the big forest for so many years, and I have never seen it like this. Not even on Yangju Island. I don't know either. Gretel whispered. He was suddenly startled, remembering something fatal, and shouted down loudly. Her experimental animals. Experimental animals. Those lizards. Those eggs. Those eggs in the alchemy device. It's already been moved, Elder Nox shouted back. Greed turned around and saw that it was not the experimental animals that had been moved, but the laboratory. Countless legs grew out from under the wooden house. No, it should be said that they were countless tree roots, clicking, clicking, and moving forward. I don't know if it has a levitation technique, but in short, the wooden house looks quite stable. A group of tree roots are walking quickly, and an unknown nature priest has put a bowl of water on the roof. The water is calm and there is no ripple. As for the solid natural force barrier used to isolate the laboratory from Anevia's meditation room, that is another matter. It seems that Anevia is in good condition this time and should be able to successfully complete the advancement. Greed let out a long sigh of relief, landed on the treetop, shook hands, and chatted with Elder Nox and others one by one, and then paid attention to the progress of his teacher Elder Irwin's experiment. Wherever you look, everyone is happy. Seeing that their god of nature cult is about to give birth to another promising child. After chatting for a while, seeing that Anevia's energy was still gathering, she turned around and returned to the Mage Tower. As soon as they returned to the door of the Mage Tower, a man in black robes, as dark as a skeleton, rushed over. Mage Nordmark, go and have a look. Yes, go and see. Your disciple, that's really incredible. Gretel was surrounded by them and walked inside. Walking near the meditation room, good guys, a group of corpses were neatly placed in the corridor, raising their hands, kicking their legs, trying to stand up. Is this before the advancement is completed? Hey, necromancers, you are still alive after all. No matter how happy you are, don't dance with the corpses. Thanks to Scarlacy for the 10,000 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1517. Anevia advanced successfully. Leon Carlos advanced successfully. Gretel's two disciples, although not at the same time, at least came out of seclusion on the same day. Of course, considering that after successfully advancing, you usually have to stay in the meditation room for a while to sort out your gains. No one can say for sure who will come first and who will come last. The final conclusion can be regarded as completed by two people on the same day. No one wins. The house takes all. Even so, the two people who made the bet were so happy that they wanted to run around the Mage Tower 3 times. What does 100 standard magic crystals count for? What is a heart of a tree? Give it directly to the two people who have just advanced, as a congratulatory gift. It is too simple. Quickly collect a bunch of them and send them to the two disciples of Master Nordmark. Anevia and Leon Carlos were caught off guard and received a bunch of gifts. There are tree hearts, medicinal materials, magic plant seeds, and various carefully preserved flowers, fruits, roots. Of course, there are also skeletons, zombies, various undead creatures, various rot sacks, tomb guards, ancient animal bones. Naturally, there are also various kinds of pearls, gems, crystals, etc. For magicians, these things are not only wealth, but also casting materials that are common to many spells. In other words, they can be solidly exchanged for combat power. The two disciples received a lot of gifts inexplicably, mostly from bosses who were much higher than them. They couldn't help but look at Gretel a few more times, waiting for his instructions. Greet smiled and said, "It's okay, Just accept it. You work harder and get results as soon as possible, and they're all in there. There are so many dragons, waiting for us to get results. So far, Greed has only completed less than 1/10 of the request at hand. The only ones that have been successfully delivered recently are a few family modification orders. The most important list is Huasca's dependents, a total of 100 of them, all of whom have been transformed. Saverai, the golden dragon who bet with him, was dejected and full of annoyance. You shouldn't have agreed to this bet. The foreign aid that Vasca found was really cheating. There are also a few other sporadic transformations, all of which are various young dragons, or dragons who have just grown up. At the stage of rapid growth in strength, he didn't want to consume the dragon's blood, so he came to find Gretel. Anyway, the requirements are not high, any ability can be added as long as the transformation is successful. Greed was also unceremonious. After receiving a small reward, he threw the list to the necromancers to practice. Dragon chromosomes are the greatest reward, aren't they? Among the transformation tasks, there is only one that is more difficult, and I am still doing it carefully little by little. The beauty favored by the blue dragon Saldari, the fox named Celia, is waiting in line for transformation. Since Celia's appearance, fox ears and tail were all liked by Saldari, the blue dragon did not want her to suddenly appear features such as dragon scales and claws during the transformation process. The only purpose of the transformation is to improve her level and gain a longer life. This requirement is too troublesome and requires a large amount of data storage of chromosome locations. Greet asked him to send over all the dragon-blooded family members in the territory, one by one, and they are analyzing them day and night. So far, the parsing progress seems to be less than 20%. I don't know how far away from what Blue Dragon needs to be able to achieve the perfect transformation. Greet sighed deeply. This is a problem with microscopy and electron microscopy. The analysis of dragon chromosomes can only be focused on one point at a time. As for whether this point of this dragon is the same as that of that dragon, whether they have the same gene, God knows. Senior sister Philby, when will you be able to figure out how to do gel electrophoresis and get suitable bands? If you can run out bands, you can determine whether this one is the same as that one based on the characteristics of the bands. That's it. But it is a pity that gel electrophoresis is a big pit, a super big pit, a super big pit. Archmage Philby plunged in, and there was no sign of being able to climb out. On the other side, the Emerald Dragon has already rushed forward impatiently. When will it be my turn? When will it be my child's turn? The current research progress has made some progress. Gretel looked at her without any guilt. So far, the success rate of artificial insemination of lizards is close to 50%, but there is still a long way to go before it can be tested on dragons. Anivia advanced once and gained quite a lot after becoming a level 10 nature priest. She naturally has the ability to cause lizard-fertilized eggs to divide quickly and promote lizard reproduction. Throw a spell on it, and under the microscope, the fertilized eggs will visibly change into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, and 8 into 16. The split fertilized eggs are put back into the female lizard's body, and then a spell is thrown on it. The natural priest with a slightly stronger perception can feel the life breath in the female lizard's body begin to grow stronger. There is no such thing as temporarily stopping the growth of fertilized eggs and then laying eggs when the situation improves. Under the inspiration of Miss Anivia, let it breed, it will breed, let it lay eggs, it will lay eggs. In the room next to Anivia, Elder Irwin was working on another technical line, directed culture of fertilized eggs. Place the fertilized egg in a specific magic circle, input energy, and strengthen the chick in a targeted manner. Make it stronger. Become stronger. Let it absorb a lot of energy during the incubation period, so that when the chick is born, it will be a magic chicken with extraordinary power. The fertilized egg failed to develop. Fail. Failed again. The fertilized eggs on the first day have directional enhancement and a mortality rate of 100%. The mortality rate of fertilized eggs on the second day is still 100%. This, a fertilized egg that has just begun to develop, does not seem to be suitable for directional enhancement. Greet didn't have to hold morning meetings, read reports, or ask questions directly. As long as you see eggs on the menu every day, you know that the elder has not made much progress here. However, after eating eggs for several days, the supply of eggs also decreased. Gretel asked, and Elder Erwin frowned. The eggs in the next few days are not dead, but the chicks hatched from them are particularly weird. Well. So, you have to be very, very, very careful when handling fertilized eggs. When the fetus is developing, many drugs taken by the mother can cause fetal malformations. Then, if you input energy and carry out transformation, the possibility of causing deformity is also very high. If you want to transform a dragon egg and input energy aimlessly, the chances of it overturning are very high. You try to carry out targeted modification of fertilized eggs. The kind that strengthens a certain chromosome point. It can only be the Elder Erwin sighed and began to change his research direction. Not long after, he encountered a problem. How to test the chromosomes of a fertilized egg. I punched a hole in the egg and pulled out the egg white, but I couldn't find the chromosomes. Thank you for the 500 starting coins rewarded by travelers who fight for their dreams. Thanks to Joan who has been cured and rewarded with 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1518. The chromosomes of a fertilized egg, of course, cannot be detected by relying on egg whites. Not to mention that the egg white is just a pile of protein and water that provides nutrients to the developing chick. Even the yolk wrapped in the egg white is also a tool that provides nutrients to the egg cells. Inside the egg yolk, that little white dot that grows little by little is the egg cell, the embryo, and the existence that contains genetic factors. Those things out there may have some chromosome fragments, so-called extranuclear staining materials or something. But is it possible to determine the genes of a chick, or any creature in the egg, by extracting a little bit of egg white? Thinking too much? Of course Gretel couldn't explain it in such detail to Elder Erwin, especially things like extranuclear chromatin. However, he also briefly explained the existence and development process of embryos. So, these outside are just nutrients and are not used. Only embryos have chromosomes. However, when the embryo is not fully developed, taking embryonic cells to measure chromosomes will cause irreparable damage to the embryo. Do we have to wait until it breaks out of its shell before we test it? Elder Erwin sighed in disappointment. Greet looked into his eyes seriously and said nothing. To solve this problem, he has at least two solutions. However, directly giving the answer is not conducive to the growth of the teacher. Elder Erwin is at level 11. If he wants to advance to level 12, level 13, or even higher, he must think and act on his own. When he puts the answer to his mouth, he is just a worker, and the feedback he gets from the world is more than doubled. Gretel hoped that the first teacher he had traveled through time could advance, and advance again, reach the highest possible position, and stay by his side for a long time. Fortunately, Elder Erwin himself is also working hard. He thought carefully for a while and came up with two methods. Then, we can start from two directions. First, grind off a little bit of the eggshell, poke a needle from it, extract some tissue for testing, and then enhance the chromosomes in a targeted manner. Well, it can be done. Greet nodded quickly. Before, in the land of eagles, when we used chicken embryos to make vaccines, we used to inject them into eggs. If you grasp the timing and position correctly, the chicks will not die. For specific operating methods and precautions, you can ask them for information. For example, how to fix the eggs, how to sterilize the eggs, how to sterilize the needle, which direction to choose for the injection, and how to seal the damaged eggshell with wax after the injection. Although it is a fairly simple operation, there are more than a dozen precautions, and every detail affects the success rate. Although this operation should not be difficult for the elders, why bother to go through the path that others have taken when there are ready-made experiences to refer to? The world will not give you feedback again. He just said it casually, but it was quite important information to Elder Irwin. The elder carefully wrote down this clue, thought about it, and sighed. But eggs and dragon eggs are not the same thing. I heard that dragon eggs are very hard and have a natural magic circle attached to them, which will spontaneously attract energy and help the young dragon in the eggshell grow. Breaking the shell of the dragon egg a little may cause harm to the young dragon, so this route may not work. Whether it works or not, you have to try more, Gretel replied without thinking. Besides, if the shell of the dragon egg is broken a little, will it be an obstacle? This is another topic. I will go back to the dragon clan and ask, teacher, you just said to start from 2 directions. The second direction is what? The second direction is to enhance the existing points. Detect the chromosomes of roosters and hens, select the same parts, and find some points for enhancement. Greet nodded vigorously. Since they are the same species, the chromosomes of roosters and hens will always have a large part in common. Then, among these same chromosomes, select a few points to strengthen, at least they will not hit the wrong direction. Well, this is a good idea, you can give it a try. His eyes were bright, and he tried hard to restrain himself from his accustomed role as a project leader, and said in a suggestive tone, teacher, I have done a lot of work on directional enhancement of chromosomes before. You can check the records. This work is not difficult, and it is not exclusive to necromancers. The key is to adjust the magic circle and increase the natural aura. Elder Irwin listened to him with a smile for a while, nodding lightly. This approach is in the right direction, but it consumes too much. Alas, as a teacher, I didn't teach him much from beginning to end, and now I have the audacity to use his resources to strengthen myself. I just hope that I can produce results soon so that I can help him a little. Work harder. By the way, if that's the case, I'm afraid that it won't work if eggs are used as raw materials, Elder Irwin said hesitantly. Chickens are not monsters after all. Their growth space is limited. However, if you use World of Warcraft eggs or World of Warcraft fetuses, eggs anyway, fetuses are more difficult to handle and look more uncomfortable when broken. As test objects, the consumption of the experiment will double. Then let's take Warcraft eggs. Gretel made the decision without thinking. Teacher, just ask them to get what kind of monster eggs you want to use. If you don't know what kind you want, there are some records of local monsters here in Tolling. You can try to find them. What do I want? I want high-level Warcraft. Well, high-level Warcraft is a bit too much. Can I have all mid-level Warcraft? Teacher, feel free to choose. Remember, the Dragon Clan is the master of Dragon Island. As long as it is for the benefit of the Dragon Clan, we can have whatever we want from all the monsters here. If we can't find anything satisfactory in the records, I will contact the Dragon Clan and ask them to they give a list. Elder Irwin gave Gretel a smile. The little guy has a heart for boxing, and he has been put to good use, but if he can save money for his disciples, he still has to save money for his disciples. Well, the selected Warcraft must have a relatively high upper limit for advancement, so that when it is improved, it is less likely to be overwhelmed. During one breeding, it is best to lay more eggs. In this case, if there is a mistake during the experiment, it will not hurt if a few eggs are killed. It is best to incubate quickly so that the experimental results come out quickly, and it is easier to adjust the direction if something is wrong. Finally, of course, it would be better if we could be closer to the dragon clan. 3 days later, Gretel was surprised when he saw the experimental plan submitted by Elder Irwin. The Elder chose 3 kinds of monsters. Golden threaded ink-horned frogs gather in large groups. Ordinary magic frogs are level 1 monsters, the leader of the group, and can reach up to level 5 monsters. Pseudo-dragons, gathering in small groups. Dragon beast, if you don't have a dragon beast, consider looking for a high-level dragon as a substitute. Frog, 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 frog egg. There are them everywhere in the swamp. I caught a frog that lays dozens to thousands of eggs at a time. Teacher, you are so good at saving me money. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1519. The golden threaded horned frog was caught quickly. The frost fire giant tribe who were guarding the hospital went out en masse, went deep into the swamp, and captured a bag full of magic frogs. From the highest-ranking frog king and his wife, to the leaders of the small groups, to the lowest-ranking ordinary demon frogs, a total of 20 pairs were captured. As for whether it is the season for magic frogs to lay eggs, whether these guys can lay eggs, how many eggs can be laid in one breath, and whether Elder Irwin can use so many eggs in experiments. The giants of the Frostfire tribe don't care about this. Carrying net bags made of tree bark, they placed the devil frogs at the gate of the hospital, then nodded and bowed, and went to greet the elder. Do you need more magic frogs? What else do you need? A pond where they live? A swamp? Food to eat? If you need anything, you can come to us. Your loyal servants are willing to do everything for you. Elder Irwin rubbed his head with a headache. The largest demon frog leader was half as tall as him, and the smallest one was as high as his knees. Such 20 pairs were caught in one go, and just to serve it, I don't know how many nature priests were needed. Can you help raise it? He asked tentatively. Take care of where they live, the food they eat, make sure they don't run out, and prepare the environment they need to lay eggs. We don't have enough manpower, so the daily feeding work depends entirely on you. Don't worry, Elder. It's no problem, Elder. The leader and elder of the Frostfire tribe stood side by side, bowing hard, trying to lower themselves to the same height as Elder Irwin. The difficulty was so high that the 2 giants specially found a depression and stood in it to look up. Look, the place where we are standing is dug into a swamp where the magic frog lives. Is it convenient? Or do we need to move it somewhere? Although this gray-haired elder is old and not of a high rank, he is the teacher of Master Nordmark. Rounding it all off, they are relatives of their master. Any needs of this person must be met with all our strength. With the help of the giants to catch and take care of the magic frogs, and the God of Nature sect, they were able to create a microclimate suitable for the survival and reproduction of the magic frogs. And with an EV releasing the mass reproduction technique, the magic frogs gave birth to a baby in an instant. Lots of frog eggs. Densely packed, piled in ponds and wrapped around tree trunks. It's really easy to make, no worries. Take 10 pills as the experimental group, and 10 pills as the control group. You can run 20 groups of experiments at the same time. With a rich material foundation, Elder Irwin's research continued smoothly. A frog egg and a chick, the elder quickly turned himself into a spinning top, completely unaware of what night it was. This is a long-term project, and Greet doesn't expect any progress from the elder in the short term, as long as the teacher can advance steadily. In other words, if you can use chromosome-directed enhancement to enhance the magic frog, you can enhance other magic beast cubs, and you can sell them in large quantities. Whether they are knights, magicians, or priests, there is a huge demand for Warcraft pets and Warcraft mounts with specified abilities. If you get one type, you will have a fixed way to make money. If you get 10 types, you will have 10 ways of making money. For the natural order, which has always been financially strapped and spends whatever money it earns to support the poor, it can be said to be a small help at least. Gretel was not worried that Elder Erwin was not working hard enough, he was only worried that Elder Erwin was working too hard and would tire himself out. As the overall person in charge of the project, he has more things to think about. For example, so far, Anivia has made lizards mate and lay fertilized eggs, and she has done it accurately. But if she changes the target to a dragon, especially a high-level dragon, she will not be able to do it. Teacher, this won't work. My spells are ineffective against high-level dragons, and they are even more ineffective against dragons. I can't let them lay fertilized eggs. Well. Gretel held his chin and frowned. Beside him, the emerald dragon, who had been anxious for his daughter for a long time, could not wait to stand up. Is it really ineffective? Even if you put away your resistance, it won't work. Gretel glanced at her sideways, feeling embarrassed and said, how about you try it? You are here alone, the spell has no effect, and Anivia's hard work has been in vain. If the spell works and you are in estrus, do you have to go to your husband overnight to have a baby? This doesn't feel right, does it? Forget it, just try it on me. The emerald dragon had made up his mind and strode out of the window and rushed to the top of the mage tower. In the hall built for the dragon clan, he turned into a dragon shape and lay down. The rich green light on her body became lighter and lighter, and gradually turned into a translucent glass, without any apparent luster, and even looked dry. Gretel followed her up. Seeing this, he had no choice but to sigh and look at Anivia. Here, cast a spell on her and try it. Wait dash. He began to dig out space equipment. The mage's robe, crown, bracelets, rings, and even the oak staff he used were thrown out and stuffed into Anivia's hands. Equip all the equipment that enhances the power of spells. Tower Spirit, Tower Spirit. Mobilize your power, build a magic circle that enhances the power of spells, and help Anivia. After this round of orders, Anivia stood in the center of the magic circle, feeling as if her spiritual power was marching through a quagmire, or dancing while carrying an oak tree that was hundreds of years old. After exerting all his strength, he raised the oak staff and pointed it in the direction of the emerald dragon. A misty green light emitted from the head of the staff and landed on the lower abdomen of the emerald dragon. For a moment, the dragon scales hit by the spell lit up slightly, and then dimmed again. The emerald dragon shook its body, lay there and felt for a moment, then turned back into the green-haired female elf, shaking its head repeatedly. Little girl, you can't do it? This spell is interesting, but it's still too weak to be effective at all. If it were your teacher, it would be about the same, no, maybe it would be stronger, if it were a legend. But this is the ability that I naturally gained when I advanced. I can't just change people if I want to. Oh, that's why I said it's a pity. Gretel stood beside her, his face darkening for a moment. Sister, I know you think I'm weak, but don't say some things so bluntly. You are still talking to the doctor after all. Long-term training as a doctor, or the habit of being disciplined by the National Health Commission, prevented him from complaining on the spot. Not only did he not complain, he sent the emerald dragon away with a smile, and then came back to help Anivia think of something. The master and apprentice faced each other and struggled for a long time. Greet slapped his hands and said seriously. 2 directions. First, you try to analyze the spell model, and then ask a high-level priest or high-level mage to try it. Increasing the caster level should increase the effectiveness of the spell. At the same time, writing out the spell model will also help you understand the spell more deeply. Anivia nodded with a grimace. He looked at Gretel eagerly, waiting for his second approach. Greet continued very smoothly. Second, don't you want to try artificial insemination? Try to make them go into estrus without using magic, and directly take the sperm and eggs. Haven't you already achieved some results in this direction before? There are some results, but... Anavia smiled bitterly. The previous experimental subjects were all lizards. If you need something, you can just grab it or rub it. But, the same method is applied to dragons. Teacher, those spells that promote reproduction cannot be used on dragons. Even if they can be used, dragons' bodies are so big, and vines can't be used to get sperm and eggs. They can't reach in. Gretel also sighed. To artificially inseminate lizards, dragons, and even drakes, you can just reach in the vines to get them. Dragons, adult dragons that are 20 to 30 meters in length, can't even fill up the cloaca of a normal person. Gretel shook his head vigorously, as if to get this horrifying scene out of his mind. He calmed down, thinking, and analyzed. If those spells are not available, use more direct and powerful methods. You can test what changes happen to the lizards or low-level dragons after using the spells that promote reproduction, and then use alternative spells. Anavia looked at Gretel blankly. Gretel thought about it and gave an example. For example, in the charm control system, many previous mind-controlling spells have now been proven to cause changes in brain waves. Now, they are trying to directly stimulate the brain with electric current, and have achieved certain results. Anavia nodded vigorously and went to work hard. In the first half of the day, I tried to analyze spells. This is a university subject, and a priest who relies on intuition and divine gift to cast spells has not dabbled in much knowledge. Gretel directly gave her a book list, and she was about to finish reading it, which would take at least 3 months. In the second half of the day, those lizards were in bad luck. One by one, they were fixed on the wooden board, the reproduction spell was released, and then the changes in their bodies were tested. Magic fluoroscopy, ultrasound, spiral magic fluoroscopy, magnetic resonance, draw blood, test blood, measure electrical fluctuations in various parts of the body. Various methods are used one after another, and then compared, summarized, and analyzed. From small to large, from ordinary lizards that are 1 foot long, to demon lizards and demon crocodiles that are as long as a person, I have gone through it all 17 or 18 times, and finally came to a conclusion. Teacher, as long as there are sperm in their testicles and eggs in their ovaries, changes in the electric waves will prompt them to ejaculate and ovulate. So, just find the appropriate current intensity and electrocute the key parts. Hearing these words, Greet felt a chill in his heart, and also in his lower body. He couldn't help but feel grateful that his functions were all normal and he didn't have to suffer from electric shock. On the surface, he still has to act like a teacher and nod calmly. It sounds like a solution. Then let's pay attention to 2 points. First, how to confirm that they have something in their belly, and second, the right current and the right position. Go find it and continue the experiment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1520. Is there any progress? Is there any progress? How long will it take before my daughter can be treated? Since Anavia successfully advanced, Emerald Dragon Tana comes here almost every half-month to ask about the research progress. Judging from the slight cracks on the edges of her scales and the tired look on her face after turning into a human form, Greet had reason to believe that she rushed over here without even taking a break after completing a round of work in Sky Dragon City. Alas, how pitiful the hearts of parents in the world are. By the way, your daughter and son-in-law did not come to seek medical treatment themselves, but you, the mother-in-law, ran extremely diligently. Is it possible that they are not in a hurry to give birth? Well, if it's convenient, why don't you invite the 2 of them to come over for a consultation first? Gretel suppressed the complaints in his heart and communicated with Tana seriously. Whether it's a man's problem, a woman's problem, or a problem of cooperation between the couple, you have to understand the situation before you can cooperate, Right. After another half-month, I saw 2 emerald dragons, one large and one small, and a huge lavender dragon flying from the sky. Before reaching the mage tower, the tower spirit started prompting Gretel. Please raise the defense level, please raise the defense level, the dragons that are approaching have obvious signs of battle on their bodies. Be careful that they are not good for the mage tower. While prompting, the image was also released. Greet glanced up and saw that the smaller emerald dragon's scales were scattered all over, with one bald patch on the east and one bald on the west. It was unknown how much it was broken, and one of its front paws looked a little lame. As for the giant lavender dragon, it is similar in size to the smaller emerald dragon. Its appearance is not unusual, but its momentum is quite sluggish. It was obvious that the mother-in-law resorted to violent means to drag her troubled daughter and son-in-law to the hospital. Fortunately, this is a different world, a dragon clan with great power attributed to itself. If it were the previous life, I am afraid that the 7th sister-in-law, the 8th aunt, or a bunch of cousins would have to be used to capture the person directly. Gretel sighed secretly and wanted to say, "Talling, you are worrying too much." It shouldn't be a big deal. After a change of thought, he honestly followed Talling's prompts and raised the defense level of the dragon clan's diagnosis and treatment area. Not to mention anything else, the 2 adult dragons being let over were filled with fire. If they stomped on or slapped their tails casually, surpassing the normal defense of the mage tower, their mage tower would be shattered. He took off to greet him and asked someone to bring Anivia over to greet the patient and his family members. The 2 parties sat down separately, and Tana immediately pushed her daughter. "Come on, you can ask, you can check, you can ask whatever you want, check whatever you want. This girl has been married for more than 100 years and still hasn't given birth. How long will this be delayed?" "Hey, don't worry, don't worry," Gretel comforted her with a smile, but it was a pity that he couldn't throw a soothing spell or a calming spell to let her breathe a sigh of relief. After comforting him, he looked at Tana seriously. "Can you let me talk to your daughter and son-in-law alone? There are some things they might be embarrassed to say if you are here." Tana frowned and saw that her son-in-law breathed a sigh of relief. Her daughter snorted with a look of pleading and had no choice but to turn around and go out. Greet smiled, motioned for Anivia to chat with the young emerald dragon first, and then left the room with the amethyst dragon and went to the next door. "Come on, don't be nervous, sit down. Let's talk slowly. Name, age, race, strength. After asking and registering all the questions, we can finally get to the point. First of all, you have been married for more than 100 years. When did you start wanting to have children?" "I've always wanted it," Amethyst Dragon replied dejectedly. They are not like some dragon clans who, for the sake of treasure, have a male dragon's nest and a female dragon's nest 1,000 kilometers apart. Unlike some dragon clans, one has been stationed in Sky Dragon City for a long time, and the other has traveled to who knows where, and has not seen each other for 10 years in total. They are not even like some dragons who spend their daily lives either studying or training or sleeping, and their thoughts are not focused on making children at all. They still want children. Then, do you regularly live as a couple? How often? Greet asked carefully. Amethyst Dragon's head turned over the unfamiliar term living as a couple 3 or 5 times. He finally understood the meaning and nodded vigorously. Of course. We've always been together. We only come once a month at most, sometimes half a month, and it's never empty. This frequency, Gretel recalled the information about the Dragon Clan, and had to sigh. Among Dragon Clan couples with a good relationship, this frequency is already considered normal, and even considered frequent. After all, dragon mating, especially mating for the purpose of giving birth, requires both husband and wife to gather a lot of energy to prepare for the birth of dragon eggs. Well, although this question is a bit offensive, please answer me. When you and your wife were living as husband and wife, did you go to the wrong door? I mean, your life essence has definitely reached the right door. A place, right? The amethyst dragon looked at Greet with very troubled eyes and remained silent for a long time. After a long while, he finally said in a strange tone. There is only one cave entrance, how could you go to the wrong place? But you. Gretel's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, I heard Amethyst Dragon continue to ask. If I read it correctly, you and the little princess of the Liuguang Shining family haven't officially gotten married yet, right? And they haven't been together, right? With no experience, can you really help me get a child? This, don't believe me so much. I am a doctor. It's a doctor. Even if you are a virgin, it does not prevent you from working in the reproductive medicine center. Well, if you are well informed, I have successfully helped the Steel Dragon Goulds to conceive their child. By the way, there is another question. I need to take some of your sperm to check the sperm motility. Is it here? Of course not. After arranging for the Amethyst Dragon and checking his sperm motility, Gretel talked with Tana's daughter, the young Emerald Dragon Alanis. Finally, he asked Tana and her daughter and son-in-law to sit down and said seriously. So far, the two couples are living a normal life, their desire to have children is also normal, and their sperm motility, based on the information I have previously obtained, is generally normal. As for the inability to conceive a child, it is currently suspected that either there is no ovulation, or the egg cannot be fertilized normally, or the fertilized egg cannot develop normally. What should we do? Do artificial insemination. Take the sperm and eggs, let them combine outside the body, provide a lot of energy, let the fertilized eggs grow normally, and then implant them into the mother's body. Gretel answered confidently. Then he turned slightly sideways and raised his hand to Anivia beside him. My disciple, Anivia, has been working on this project before and has achieved success on ordinary lizards, more than 3 types of Warcraft lizards, as well as pseudo-dragons and low-level sub-dragon beasts. Can we see the lab records? Greet smiled and said nothing, looking at Anivia. Under the simultaneous attention of the 3 giant dragons, Anivia's body trembled slightly, her cheeks turned pink, and she took a step forward. Certainly. The experimental records were impeccable, and Jade Dragon Tana, as well as her daughter and son-in-law, expressed satisfaction with it. Next, comes the practical stage. Great reproduction technique. No. I can't get pregnant, I haven't analyzed the spell yet, and there is no way to teach it to others for the time being, I still need to artificially extract sperm and eggs. How to get it? Anivia has put a lot of effort into this project and has achieved certain results. Research, explore. Normal female lizards in estrus, female lizards after taking eggs, magic photography, ultrasound, spiral magic photography, magnetic resonance. He tortured those female lizards to death and even dissected 7 or 8 of them. Of course, dissection does not mean killing. There are treatments to back it up. After dissection, the patient can still be cured again. Ahem, after treatment, whether the female lizard can continue to lay eggs normally is another question. At the very least, if the fallopian tube is unfortunately severed, Anivia learned about this anatomical structure when she was studying caesarean section in the hospital, and does not recover normally, even if the treatment is completed and the abdominal cavity heals normally, she will probably not be able to give birth. Anivia spent half a month in the laboratory, relying on a lot of magic exploration and dissection, and finally got the answer. Whether it is a small lizard, a larger Warcraft lizard, a 2-meter-long crocodile, or a pseudo-dragon or a dragon beast, when they are in estrus, they will have a batch of larger follicles in their ovaries. After collecting the eggs, we observed again that those particularly large follicles had basically ruptured. So, only when the follicles grow to the largest size can they automatically release eggs. Those smaller, especially small follicles, are like unripe fruits on the branches. Even if they are picked, they cannot be eaten. As for the size of follicles, you can use ultrasound to check. Since lizards have scales, you need to pay attention during the ultrasound inspection. Anavia's notebook is densely packed with experimental plans she has prepared. So the next task is to go in two directions. One is to promote the rapid growth of these follicles, and the other is to promote the division of the largest follicles and release eggs. Prompt the follicles to grow rapidly. According to Anavia's experience, once the mass reproduction spell is used, it can be solved quickly. Naturally, if the mass reproduction spell is ineffective, or the dragon will resist, you may have to think of other methods. And to prompt the female lizard to release eggs. After studying these days, Anavia understood one thing deeply. Even if the follicles grow to their maximum size, these female lizards that have been picked up and put down, and picked up again are still unwilling to actively ovulate and need magical stimulation. The test results show that during the ovulation process, the body has an obvious electrical response. For this reason, we are considering electrical stimulation of the female lizard's ovaries or surrounding areas to promote ovulation. What? You want to shock me? Thanks to @Maumajiang Suja for the 200 starting coins reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1521. Not to mention that Anievia couldn't do it, nor could Greet directly shock the female emerald dragon. He leaned forward, wanting to say a few words for his disciple. As soon as her lips opened, Anavia had already stood up and bowed respectfully to the opposite side. Of course we won't do it right away. Regarding artificial insemination surgery, we have a complete set of research steps and research plans, and we will move forward step by step. We will only do it until we confirm that it is necessary. Greet leaned back and leaned on the back of the chair, his whole body relaxing. He glanced at Anavia with a smile, nodded to Emerald Dragon Tana, and made a gesture to listen to her. Well, that's great. Over the years since he left, Anivia has grown into an independent researcher and team leader. Yes, he is already at level 10. He has independently presided over a project as big as streptomycin. He has long been able to take charge of his own business. She is no longer the little girl who leads a family of wild boars to his door and follows him to wash test tubes and cook beef paste. First of all, we need to confirm to what extent the female dragon's follicles have developed before the released eggs are mature enough to combine with sperm and develop into strong enough fertilized eggs. Anavia was still talking. So far, we have conducted experiments on various lizards, pseudo-dragons, and 2 sub-dragon beasts, but there is no data on dragons. For this reason, I hope to find at least some young and adult dragon beasts and conduct research on them. Of course, in view of the differences between the various branches of the dragon family, the dragon beast with the emerald dragon is the best. This. Tana hesitated. The dragon clan's attitude towards Team Gretel has always been, if you want Warcraft, you can give them as much as you want. If you want dependents, you can send as many as you want. The dependents can even bring their own dry food. If you want a dragon beast, this is very stingy. So far, there are only 4 dragon beasts participating in the research, and they can only do a very small amount of non-invasive research under the supervision of the dragon clan. Such as cutting open the belly, dissecting the ovary and then curing it, such as using vines to extend into the body and trying to retrieve eggs. This kind of research will cause harm and pain to the dragon beast, and the law is not allowed. But a dragon beast is a dragon beast after all. If it is for the benefit of the dragon clan, the dragon beast cannot be sacrificed. Tana looked at her daughter, then at her son-in-law, gritted her teeth, and made up her mind. I had a daughter before Lani, and she also, has not awakened her true name. If necessary, I can bring her here, but there are conditions. Let me see your research results. I see that this method of yours can make a female dragon, or at least a female lizard, pregnant. Of course, Anavia smiled. She answered confidently without hesitation. You can check the detailed version of the previous experiment records at any time. If you want me to redo it in front of you and demonstrate it to you, that's fine too. Her confident tone and demeanor made the older jade dragon breathe a sigh of relief and become more confident. She nodded. Okay, if the results of the experiment are satisfactory, I can bring the dragon beasts here, and I can even contact compatriots who have the same worries and find a few more dragon beasts. Well, you just said first, so what is the second step? Secondly, we need to patiently test the method of stimulating ovulation on lizards, pseudo-dragons, and subsaurs, and Via continued to talk. The current preliminary plan is electrical stimulation, but the location of the electric shock, the intensity of the electric shock, the time of the electric shock, and precautions all need to be further tested. Then, in view of the dragon's strong resistance to various spells, we have to patiently do more experiments and choose more methods. Maybe, after the spell is analyzed, we can also use magic to solve it. Can it be solved without electric shock, or should it be solved without electric shock? However, no matter which solution is used, it must be based on a large number of experiments. This point does not need to be explained in detail by Anivia or Gretel, the Emerald Dragon also understands this. There was no other way. In order to prevent my daughter from suffering any more pain, I had no choice but to let the dragon beast go on top of her. Take us to see your experimental records. Show them to us. As long as we can see that your experiment is successful, the dragon beast will arrive soon. There is naturally no problem with experimental records. There is no problem in practical operation. Anivia caught 2 pairs of male and female lizards, and cast a large reproduction spell on one pair, allowing them to mate and become pregnant on the spot. The other pair uses magic to stimulate ovulation and sperm, collect sperm and eggs on site, and perform artificial insemination on site. After several consecutive spells, the sperm combines with the egg and becomes a fertilized egg. The fertilized egg divides, and divides again. It can be clearly seen under the microscope that the fertilized egg expands from a small one into a cluster of 16 cells. Anivia was familiar with the process, transplanting the cluster of fertilized eggs back into the female lizard, and then shot it with another spell. Look, the life breath has become stronger and more stable. You can clearly feel the eggs inside the female lizard, right? Jade Dragon Tana nodded solemnly. At least in lizards, this technical route of taking sperm and eggs separately, artificially combining them, using spells to promote growth, and reimplanting them has immediate benefits in promoting reproduction. Okay. In half a month, I will send 4 dragon beasts over. At least 4. Tana made a decisive decision. Anavia felt Alexander for a moment. Before she could say anything, she saw Tana dragging her daughter and son-in-law striding out of the laboratory, and a huge dragon shadow rose into the sky. This, teacher, I'm afraid I won't be able to complete this project. She stiffened her neck, flexed and stretched her toes, and turned to Gretel one by one. I'm really not sure about electric shock. I did it several times in a row, and the lizard was electrocuted to death every time. Ah, it's okay. Greet waved his hand casually. As a mentor, as an academic leader, what you have to do is to solve resource problems for students and subordinates. I'll go back to senior sister to ask for someone. Don't forget, your mentor is a magician with the horns of thunder. Thunderhorn doesn't know how to play anything, and it's impossible that he doesn't know how to play with electricity. Direct current, alternating current, high voltage electricity, Low-frequency electric pulses, any trick they can think of is the trick they can play. Ahem, except for a certain pseudo-Thunderhorn true healing mage. Even so, by hugging his senior sister's thigh tightly, he could easily carry his nephew over. Please help with this project and adjust the required current. It is best not to need manual control, but to use a generator or battery to control it. Work harder, this project can directly help the dragon family give birth. Helping dragons give birth equals having direct contact with dragons equals being able to get benefits directly from dragons. The nephew who was brought over by Greet looked excited and plunged into the project wholeheartedly. Measure voltage, measure current, and adjust the output mode. From spell output, to pulling a few wires and poking them in, to making a special probe. During this period, I also repeatedly communicated with my compatriots on the other side of the ocean and repeatedly asked for help. After all, the charm control department is doing some projects to electrically stimulate the brain. The electroacupunctures inserted into the body were also planned by Thunderhorn and actually produced by the Alchemy Guild. Even with such strong technical support, the electric shock experiment was still stumbling. Anivia worked for 10 days in a row, and was barely able to remove the eggs from the low-level dragon. However, every time she received an electric shock, she needed healing skills to wait by her side. Once the electric shock goes down, the sub-dragon will definitely become stiff, twitch and defecate randomly. The better ones can recover on their own, then run away like crazy and never look back. He almost fell into coma on the spot, his heartbeat and breathing stopped, and he needed a treat fatal wounds shot to bring him back from the brink of death. Anivia became more and more depressed and frustrated, and finally came to Greet for advice. Isn't it possible to use electric shock? The damage is very serious, and Yelong's stress response is also very strong. It is impossible to try this level of pain and damage on the dragon clan. No matter how anxious the dragon is to have a child, he can give her a claw in an instant. It's really difficult. Gretel nodded with understanding. 36-volt low-voltage electricity can cause instant pain when hitting your hands. The stronger electric current still hits the delicate and important parts. This kind of pain is simply piercing the heart, liver, and internal organs. Now there are two methods. One is to prepare anesthesia in advance. Although it cannot isolate the current, we can try to isolate the pain. Under anesthesia, extend the discharge probe as close to the target site as possible, and then discharge quickly and with the smallest possible dose. In this way, at least other organs can be protected and pain and stress can be reduced. Anivia set a new record. She has been trying surface electric shocks before, but now it seems that she can only try inserting the electric shock head into the cloaca. Teacher, what about the second method? The second method is to directly retrieve the eggs. Greet sighed with a deep expression on his face. A long needle, a needle that's thick enough and long enough, is inserted close to the ovary, away from other blood vessels and nerves. Didn't you see the follicles when you used ultrasound before? Under ultrasound guidance, the needle is inserted into the target follicle and directly aspirated. This method was also the method most commonly used by assisted reproductive specialists in Greet's previous life. The problem is that this method is a bit difficult to use on dragons. The egg retrieval needle used on ordinary humans is 35 centimeters long and 0.9 to 1.6 millimeters thick. If it is used on a 30-meter long female dragon, how long is the egg retrieval needle? Is 350 centimeters enough? What about 35 meters? Such a long needle, oh no, dragon spear, can its casting process be able to create such a long and thin needle? Can you break through the scales and muscles and penetrate the dragon's ovary correctly? Even if the length, thickness, and strength are sufficient, who will control this dragon gun and make it have the correct needle insertion position? Just thinking about it, Gretel felt that this plan was too difficult, so difficult that it was completely impossible to solve. He patted Anivia on the shoulder helplessly. Of course, This solution is only used as a last resort. You'd better try to give an electric shock. Thanks to @Yamengbing and @Bookfriend 202206021253222547 for the 10,000 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1522. Lower the voltage. Lower the voltage. Lower the voltage again. Down again, down again, down again. Nature Walker first level spell, Cumulonimbus. Summon clouds and rain down tiny lightning bolts to strike the enemy. If you hit a defenseless civilian, the minimum damage can still cause the person to fall to the ground on the spot, with large branch-like electric shock burns appearing on the body. Magician's zero-level spell, Lightning Shock. Fires a beam of lightning energy to launch a ranged attack on the target. If you hit a civilian, with the minimum damage, you can still take away a third of his life. For such an electrical spell, the voltage and current intensity can be imagined. Even if an EV reduced the power of the spell as much as possible, and the Thunderhorn magician who came to help had even more exquisite control skills, it could only reduce the loss of 1/3 of the life to 1/6 of the life. Specifically speaking, a lizard about a foot long would still be killed on the spot, or put into a state of near death. It was not until after communicating with Nevis that the magician from Thunderhorn realized what mistake he had made. The colleagues opposite asked in surprise. "How much voltage do you use? The hand-rubbing spell? Are you kidding?" In the charm control department, they use electric current to stimulate the human body. They all start from 0.1 volts and increase it bit by bit. Don't believe it? If you don't believe it, wind a coil and try it on yourself. You know how to wind a coil. You know how to measure voltage. Try it yourself. Try how much voltage you can get without causing any harm. By the way, this kind of stimulation usually lasts for a while, such as 3 seconds at a time, or 5 seconds at a time. The Thunderhorn mage, who was severely scorned by his colleagues, was quite unconvinced. After thinking about it, I followed my colleagues' instructions and started cutting boards, winding coils, and rubbing the electric stimulation probe with my hands. Carefully adjust it to 0.5 volts, press it on your skin, and turn it on gently. Hey, I don't feel anything. Could it be that my level is too high and my resistance to electric current is too strong? Adjust it a little higher, to 0.6 volts, but still feel nothing, adjust it even higher. After adjusting it to 5 volts, he finally shivered and felt a little interesting. However, when I tried it on my arms, it seemed to have no effect other than numbness. The so-called effect that Anivia came to him specifically to achieve. The magician became curious, stood up and made sure that the doors and windows were closed, then threw a blocking spell, and then a mage's secret chamber. This spell can isolate all detection from the outside world for a certain period of time. Although the master of the mage tower is usually not so boring and manipulates the tower spirit to spy on their situation, but if it can be kept secret, it is better to keep it secret. Make sure that all confidentiality work is completed, and no one can spy on what he did. The magician smiled, secretly inserted the probe into his body, and pressed the switch. A feeling of crispness, numbness, pain, and pleasure rose from the tailbone and went straight to the top of the head. The magician shivered, and soon pressed the switch a second time. 2 hours later, he staggered out of the room with his legs crossed and rushed to Anivia's laboratory. Anivia waited until there was no one, and waited several times but couldn't get anyone to come. She couldn't help but go to the mage tower to find someone in person. As soon as the two people met at the door of the mage tower, Anivia looked him up and down, and her expression changed. "What's wrong with you? Something doesn't feel right." "It's okay, it's okay. You feel very weak. Your life energy has dropped a lot. What's wrong with you? Are you too tired from research?" Do you want to take a rest? I'm really fine, ouch. The Thunder Mage tried to take 2 quick steps to show that everything was really fine and there was nothing wrong with him. However, as soon as he moved quickly, the injured area was immediately involved. He said ouch and his whole face was distorted. Anavia reflexively supported him. You are hurt. As he said this, he threw a healing spell over. As the light rain penetrated his body, the Thunder Mage let out a long breath, and his twisted cheeks finally calmed down. Anivia kept staring at his expression carefully, sensing the direction in which the healing technique would work. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he wanted to speak, but his lips moved but he hesitated. If you don't feel well, you should take a rest. Although the research task is tight, it is not urgent in a day or two, or, you can go find a therapist to take a look. Alas, the usual treatments for hemorrhoids don't seem to be able to cure them. The teacher taught several therapists at Oak Grove Hospital. In recent years, has technology spread to the medical branch of the conjuration system? She hadn't paid much attention to this matter, and she wanted to ask Carlos later. I'm fine, I'm really fine, Thunder Mage still insisted. Before he finished speaking, a black-robed mage wandered by, squinting his eyes and sneering. Hey, look at the exhausted look on your face, you thunder horns, even if you have been single for decades and can't find a wife, you are still having fun. Where are your flowers? Thunder Mage was furious and immediately retorted. You guys who sleep with skeletons and zombies all day long. You have no shortage of female companions, but it's a pity that they are not alive. At #UN%. %UN #at. Before Anavia could react, the two people were already quarreling with each other angrily. Anavia looked left and right, and finally understood why this person was injured, and tried to cough. Okay, since you are fine, please hurry up and do the research. Our schedule is very tight, and we must produce results before the Dragon Clan comes again. Thunder Mage was half pushed and half pulled away by her, heading straight to the outside of the Mage Tower, the research center of the Natural Mage. Entering the laboratory, Anivia expertly fixed the lizard, watched the Thunder Mage take out the newly made electric stimulation rod, and whispered. I asked the teacher today that before stimulating, be sure to apply lubricant on the stimulation rod to avoid cloacal burns. At the same time, during the stimulation process, the cloacal temperature must be closely monitored to avoid irreparable damage. The lizard is not a human being. If it feels pain, it will not yell to stop, and it will not be able to struggle even if it wants to. Thunder Mage coughed with a straight face, trying hard to keep his face solemn and not give any response. Anavia said no more, lowered her head, kept making preparations, and kept recording. Rinse the cloaca first with sterile saline. Spell anesthesia, isolate pain, insert electric stimulation rod. Prepare the monitoring spell. The first electrical stimulation, voltage 0.5, current 0.1, duration 3 seconds, start. Research work is so unpretentious and boring. A form as big as half a table was filled with various experimental conditions. Anivia and Thunder Mage joined forces to try them one by one. Hundreds of lizards, dozens of pseudosaurs and subsaurs, each has to find the optimal stimulation voltage, stimulation current, stimulation time and frequency. At the same time, based on the data of these monsters, the data of dragon beasts and dragon clan must be speculated. It's so difficult. Anavia sighed tiredly. The data at hand is densely packed, including lizard, pseudo-dragon, and sub-dragon. However, to deduce the appropriate stimulation intensity for dragon beasts and dragons based on these, she really had no idea at the moment. Alas, in 5 or 6 days, the first batch of dragon beasts will probably arrive. By that time, if the appropriate or more appropriate stabbing intensity is not calculated and the dragon beast suffers too much pain, The emerald dragon may not necessarily fall out on the spot and take away all the dragon beasts. However, if she wants to provide more dragon beasts, or even want her daughter to join the experiment, more negotiations will be needed, or the teacher will need to give more guarantees. No, speed up. Try to speed up. We need to find more reliable experimental methods and calculation methods, and strive to get accurate results. The Thunder Mage stood next to her with a straight face. Since he lost face a few days ago, he has minimized communication with Anavia and only cooperated with the experiment according to her instructions. However, looking at her hair turning gray with worry, the Thunder Mage sighed and decided to make a suggestion. There is a method. In the final analysis, the resistance of Warcraft to current damage is resistance. We can measure the resistance of these Warcraft, that is, the resistance to current. Well, everything that has passed through the scales and is in the body must be measured. Since adult dragons may not be willing to have their internal resistance measured, we can try to measure muscle resistance and then find a suitable substitute. That's great, Anavia's eyes lit up. Then I'll trouble you to design the experimental plan. I will fully cooperate with you. Don't worry. Leave it to me. Thunder Mage is gearing up. Measuring resistance. Ever since they understood the concept of resistance, the mages from Thunderhorn wanted to test everything. The armor on the body, steel armor, leather armor, various Warcraft leather armors, helmets, boots, wetted or not wetted. Weapons of all kinds, with metal handles, with wooden handles, with chains, without chains, shields covered with skin, shields without skin, steel shields, wooden shields. High-level warrior, mid-level warrior, low-level warrior, high-level, mid-level and low-level spellcaster. Various types of monsters. Isn't it just a resistor? The resistance is different, and the damage is different. As long as you accumulate enough data, you can calculate how much damage a lightning spell of the same intensity can do to different objects. Of course, no matter how much they measured, they did not extend their research scope deep into the lizard's cloaca. These data have to be started from scratch, and then compared with the resistance between the scales, the resistance between the scales, the resistance between the muscles after the scales are uncovered, and the resistance in places not covered by scales, such as the mouth. Experiment. Experiment. Work hard to do experiments, work hard to calculate data, and complete the comparison data as much as possible before the Emerald Dragon comes back. You will never guess what pornographic papers Kat checked out today. Pornography among medical students is so rampant that other professions really can't keep up. Pornography in other professions is just normal practice among medical students. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1523. In order to restore his reputation, Master Thunder, who died once in the Huali Society, devoted himself wholeheartedly to research. Day and night, I don't know what night it is. Even when the Emerald Dragon Tana came with her daughter and son-in-law and 4 dragon beasts, he didn't come out to watch. Instead, he buried himself in the laboratory and the animal pen, hiding among a bunch of lizard monsters and dragons, unable to extricate yourself. So, have you made any new progress recently? The beautiful Emerald Dragon shook her dark green hair and asked expectantly. Anivia had 2 big dark circles on her face. She was so tired that she almost fell asleep while standing. She reluctantly smiled at her. This Lord Emerald Dragon, or in other words, this patient's family member and provider of experimental conditions, is more demanding and urgent than the teacher. After all, if she can't produce results for a period of time, the teacher will just smile and say, "It's okay, don't worry, this subject is inherently difficult," or give her some pointers. Go and read these books, go and read these papers. If you need knowledge, you can ask a magician from any department for advice, or ask a magician from any department for help. As for Jade Dragon Tana, if she dared to say I'm sorry, there's no progress at all, I really can't imagine whether the other party would fall out. It shouldn't be possible, right? In other words, even if it does, a mage tower containing more than a dozen top magicians and nearly 100 high-level magicians should be able to stop a legendary dragon from causing trouble? Various thoughts were spinning rapidly in her mind, and she tried her best to smile. Yes, we have made some new progress. We have established a safe process for stimulating sperm and ovulation, and have found safe stimulation methods on several types of Warcraft lizards and dragons. Having said this, he quickly glanced at Alanis next to the older emerald dragon. Seeing that her whole body was so nervous that her shoulders were stretched at right angles, he comforted her with a smile. Because magic will be used to relieve pain in advance, the person undergoing sperm/egg retrieval will not feel any pain. Alanis breathed a small sigh of relief. Her mother was not that easy to talk to, so she asked directly. So, what about the dragon? What kind of current should be used, and how much damage will it cause? Are you still trying again and again? This shouldn't be the case. Anavia was prepared and stood up with a smile. In fact, the professional mage from Thunderhorn, who is also the teacher's classmate, is studying this problem with all his strength. The specific method is to measure the magic resistance of different subjects in order to arrive at a correct formula that can be quickly substituted. Is that so? Jade Dragon Tana was slightly moved. She stared at Anivia carefully, then glanced at Gretel, who was relaxing and leaning on the side with a smile, and stood up suddenly. Can I see him? Please. It is not far from the Mage Tower to the testing site of the Order of the God of Nature. The group of people walked quickly, and when they arrived at the entrance of the animal pen, they saw the Thunder Mage crackling and thundering endlessly. Getting closer, the older Emerald Dragon, who was relatively familiar with magical power, had narrowed his eyes slightly. These thunder and lightning were floating slightly, woven into various numbers. Take a closer look, these numbers are arranged horizontally and vertically, as if arranged in a table, and there are labels on the table. Voltage, current, frequency, resistance, blue-scaled flying lizard, invisible lizard, giant lizard, flame lizard, underground lizard, mire lizard, pseudosaurus, ankylosaurus, Deinonychus, steel plate dragon. Beside the table, there are constant twists and turns of formulas, lines rising and falling, falling and rising again. Every line flashed, and there must be a few numbers on the form crackling, and the lightning flashed, and then the Thunder Mage lowered his head and muttered, "It's not right, it's wrong again." With a wave of his hand, the formula disappeared out of thin air, and then he started to calculate a new formula. It's too awful. Behind Tana, the amethyst dragon sighed softly. He knew and was very familiar with everything that the Thunder Mage did. He himself was like this when he was learning and practicing spells. However, the problem is, if it is not for the purpose of exercising mental strength, or because of poverty, or, more likely, because of stinginess, even dragons will choose to write on paper or animal skins. At worst, he would write on the wall of the dragon's nest, on the ice, or on the sand, scratching the wall into stripes. After scratching, he would smooth it out, and then scratch it again. It's too tiring to directly condense the elements into calculation formulas. Why don't you let Talling help you figure this out? Next to him, Alanis whispered. Isn't it faster for the tower spirit to calculate these things? Why do you have to do it yourself? Why do you have to tire yourself out like this? The Mage Tower. No energy? Can we still continue to conduct research if we run out of energy? Can his problem still be solved? Could it be that I am stuck at the last step, just so close that my research will not be successful? I tried to persuade him, but he said running around would be troublesome. Anivia shook her head gently, led them around the Thunder Mage, and walked towards the outside of the animal pen in small steps. He can immediately correct, retest, and re-verify if he finds something wrong with his calculations. He has to queue up to find Taling to calculate. After the calculations, he comes back and retests. After the measurements, he has to queue up again. With this little time, he would have finished the calculations by himself. By the way, is he worthy of being a level 15 magician? No need for a tower spirit, no need for a manuscript, just forget it. Anavia sighed softly. When will she be able to have such strong mental strength, such concentration, and be able to write tables, formulas, and calculate with bare hands like this? Alas, there is still a long way to go. However, Emerald Dragon Tana only looked at it twice more and followed Anavia away. This level of calculation is ordinary in the eyes of dragons, especially those who focus on casting spells. If you don't have this level, you still want to become a legend? Just kidding. She followed Anivia into the laboratory, picked up the experimental record, and read it line by line, page by page. Type, weight, voltage, current, frequency. Experimental animal reactions, tissue burns, treatment conditions, body surface resistance, muscle resistance, internal resistance, oral resistance. Just the experimental records of electroshock egg retrieval were piled thickly on the table in 7 or 8 volumes. The handwriting was thick and light, and each one was different. It was obvious that they were not written on the same day. Tana flipped through several books in succession, mentally calculated the number of experiments and their duration, and felt a little moved. You do these experiments from morning till night every day, without stopping at all? That's for sure. Anavia smiled slightly. The faster the results are obtained, the faster the patient's pain can be solved. Unfortunately, there are only 2 of us, and the caster needs to ensure sleep, so it really can't be done faster. Before he finished speaking, there was a huge thunderclap outside, lightning flashed, and the whole world was illuminated brightly. High and low roars of beasts followed closely, accompanied by booming crashes. It was obvious that almost all the monsters captured in the animal pen were frightened. Anavia stepped out and rushed out. With the clatter of footsteps, other nature priests also rushed out of their respective laboratories, throwing large amounts of soothing spells into the animal pens like rain. In the center of the animal pen, a thunder mage floated high, dancing and wearing a hunting robe, and the electric snake danced wildly. I figured it out. I finally figured it out. There is a fixed ratio between the resistance in the lizard's cloaca and the resistance in the mouth. According to this formula, there is no problem in calculating the intensity of the electric shock, it must be accurate. Hey, figure it out, don't explode. Yeah. Before Anavia could speak, Tana had floated up gently and hung to the same height as him, smiling half-heartedly. As soon as the soft and melodious voice entered his ears, Thunder Mage felt like a bucket of ice water was poured on his head. He shivered and woke up instantly. It should be no problem. It should be accurate. I will find a few more monsters to verify. If there is no problem, I can verify it on the dragon beast. Anivia, come together. In the animal pen, there are several kinds of sub-dragons that have been specially raised and have not been tested yet. Anivia and the Thunder Mage teamed up to measure basic conditions, resistance, mass reproduction, detect follicles, and give electric shocks. Catch another one, measure it, do mass reproduction, explore it, and then give it an electric shock. After 3 or 4 consecutive attacks, the electric shock was a success, or in other words, the voltage and circuit were adjusted within a very small range. Emerald Dragon Tana watched from the side, her face became softer and softer, and she finally nodded. It looks good. Okay, I brought the dragon beast, let's try it on the dragon beast. 4 dragon beasts, 2 male and 2 female, were led to the outside of the animal pen. One head is green all over, one head is slightly blue, one head is black, and the other head is dark red. Obviously, the four-headed dragon beasts come from four different branches of the dragon clan. They are all between 25 and 30 meters in length. Judging from their size and body development, they have already reached the stage of adult dragons. Even for a legendary dragon like Tana, it is not easy to get a dragon beast of a specified age, and it requires a lot of favors. Anivia took a deep breath, her face became solemn, and she and Thunder Mage nodded to each other. Whether it succeeds or not depends on this step. If this step is successful, you can directly treat the dragon clan, start solving the dragon clan's infertility problem. We're coming one by one. Could you please do me a favor? First, take this dark red female dragon beast to the mage tower and do some basic measurements. A whole body scan to explore the length from the inside of the cloaca to the ovary and explore the development of follicles. The electrical resistance inside the mouth is measured to calculate the intensity required for electrical stimulation. The dragon beast of the Emerald Dragon is Tana's biological child, and in a sense is Alanis' sister. Let her suffer as little as possible. As for the other dragon beasts, who would feel bad if there are no adults in the family to support them? The follicles are developing normally, so we should be able to try to retrieve eggs, so, should we start now? Thanks to the strong sea monster for the 10,000 starting coins reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1524. The experiment reached the stage where the dragon beast was officially used. Not only Gretel, but also Archmage Philby paused the work at hand and came over to watch. Conjuration system, alchemy system, and even necromancy system, all those who can spare time will be dispatched. Elder Nox took all the natural pastors and grabbed a vantage point in the front row to experience it up close. In order to make it easier to grab the position, Elder Irwin was pushed to the front. Expand your mental power. Try to feel it. The first birth of life. The germination and rhythm of life. The process of connecting the child body with the mother body, the way to obtain matter and energy from the mother body. This is the dragon clan. Even if it is a dragon beast, its physical characteristics are the same as those of the Sirius dragons, but the spiritual level is different. Hurry, hurry, seize the opportunity and try to feel it, don't let it go. Among the onlookers from 3 floors inside and 3 outside, Anivia's movements were calm and rhythmic. Bring down the dragon beast, ask your assistant to control the dragon beast, and release a strong enough anesthesia spell so that the dragon beast cannot feel pain. Adjust the intensity of the electric shock based on the data measured in advance. Prepare for ultrasound detection, prepare for various vital signs monitoring magic, and prepare for measuring magic that senses the temperature in the cloaca. 3, 2, 1, go. Clean, rinse, disinfect. 2 demon dolls, one behind the other, carried an electric shock pole that had been carefully sterilized and coated with water-based lubricant, and sent it into the dragon beast's body. The modified ultrasonic detection magic will reveal to everyone the dragon beast's ovaries that are constantly vibrating and changing with breathing. Anivia stared closely at the ultrasound feedback and the vital sign monitoring light screen, and ordered softly. Start. Increase the voltage by 0.1, continue. Add another 0.1 and continue. Add another 0.5. Increase it by 0.5. Keep this voltage and repeat stimulation. Come again. Come again. Except for Greet, less than 1/10 of the audience present could understand ultrasound images. Most people can only see black and white images flickering, contraction, relaxation, contraction, relaxation. So what happened? Why is it sufficient to reach this voltage? Shut up and watch carefully. Gretel smiled slightly. Anvia is good at operating the ultrasound machine. From the image, you can see the large and small follicles in the ovaries. The ovaries contract, relax, contract, relax, the largest follicle ruptures, ruptures, ruptures again. Almost, he said silently in his heart. Without ovulation stimulating hormones, there are only so many eggs that can mature at one time, which is basically the same number of eggs that a dragon can lay in a clutch. On the screen, 5 of the largest follicles have ruptured, and the rest are all small follicles that have not yet matured. They are no longer suitable for continued stimulation and will cause harm. Sure enough, Anavia also issued timely instructions. Stop. Stop stimulating, quit. Teacher, please take the male dragon beast's sperm. If you can use magic to seduce, use magic to seduce. If you can't use magic to seduce, use electric stimulation. I go. I go. From the order of the god of nature, 2 senior priests immediately volunteered. Dragon beast, collect sperm from the dragon beast, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you can touch it and operate it, you must seize this opportunity. Well, if the sperm taken out cannot be used up at one time, the remaining part can be collected and used for other research. Naturally, the priests jumped out, and there was a slight commotion among the magicians. Several hands that were about to be raised fell down. The magicians from the Thunder Horn, the transformation magicians, the alchemists, and the medical mages looked at each other and sighed softly. Hey, forget it, after all, it is one of the masters of Nordmark Master, and it is a professional counterpart, we will not compete with them. I'll need dragon beast materials later, so I'll just find a way to get some. I go. The other magicians of all departments are willing to be humble, but the necromancers don't think about what humility means. 5 or 6 arms were raised at the same time, shaking and shouting. You can leave the massage and semen extraction to us. The golden skeleton has agile movements and is extremely easy to twist and bend. It ensures perfect disinfection and no dead ends. Spell temptations can also be left to us. Certified in the charm control system, the level is excellent. Regardless of male or female dragons, any race, color, size, or cry, we can simulate it. We will definitely make the dragon beasts happy. It's okay if you need to simulate the entity. The golden skeleton is set up on a shelf and made into the shape of a small dragon to ensure that the dragon beast cannot feel it. Several black-robed mages shouted and pushed each other, eager to squeeze the others out. Completely ignoring that the circle around them was getting bigger and bigger, the magicians from other departments twitched their mouths and quietly stepped back, leaving a group of them in the middle. You necromancers are having too much fun. Spell temptation can be recognized in the charm control system. Using a skeleton to build a physical frame can rival the alchemist's demon doll. By the way, is this the reason why the necromancer is single all year round? You couldn't find a spouse anyway, so you tried to find a way to solve it internally? Gretel couldn't help but wiped his sweat, and was glad for the 10,000th time that he didn't rush for quick success and went directly to the Black Crow Swamp. He nodded slightly to Elder Knox. The elder waved his hand and led the 2 nature priests away from the dragon beast. Naturally, the priest has a way to do this kind of thing, and there is no need for the necromancer to get involved. If you dare to do it, we are afraid that the aura of death on your body is too strong and will destroy the aura of life in the sperm. The female dragon has a huge body, and it still takes quite some time from the rupture of the follicles to the release of eggs. Using this period of time, the natural priests have completed a set of processes by collecting semen, distributing it, and observing and recording the activity under a microscope. By the time Anavia retrieved the eggs, 5 sperms had already been put into special life containers and sent to the laboratory. Anivia injected eggs into the container one by one, separated them one by one, and cast spells one by one. Egg number 1, set as the control group, was placed in an environment where the temperature and energy simulated the female dragon's body, allowing it to combine naturally. Eggs number 2 and 3 are set as the first group of the experimental group and placed in a simulated environment to release the mass reproduction technique to promote the combination of sperm and eggs. Eggs number 4 and 5 are set as the second group. Place it in an energy-enhanced environment to release the great reproduction technique. She was alone in a white coat, busy in a sterile laboratory isolated from the outside world. Except for Gretel, who was watching from a distance at the entrance of the laboratory, the magicians, priests, including the 3 dragons, could only wait outside the laboratory. Are you done? Is it done? The second hand ticks, and time passes by. An hour later, Gretel was the first to turn around and go out, nodding to everyone. Another hour later, Anivia walked out slowly and nodded to everyone, especially bowing to the 3 dragons. The eggs released in the mass reproduction technique have been combined into fertilized eggs. The sperm and eggs in the simulated natural environment have not yet been combined. Based on past experience, you need to wait 24 to 28 hours. We can conclude that for dragon beasts, mass reproduction can promote the successful combination of sperm and eggs. It can be inferred from this that the mass reproduction technique also has a certain probability of promoting the production of fertilized dragon eggs. Tana let out a small sigh of relief. Although Anivia's level is not high enough and the power of the great reproduction technique is not high enough to break through the dragon's natural magic resistance, it is obvious that sperm and eggs do not have such strong magic resistance. This spell is effective on dragon beasts, and it is estimated that it will also be effective on dragons. She asked urgently. Then, what happens after it's implanted in the body? With your permission, we can use the mass reproduction technique to cause the fertilized eggs to divide to a certain extent and then implant them into the dragon beast. Then, we will observe the pregnancy and confirm the subsequent results. I agree, please cast the spell. In fact, such an experimental design is not very scientific. Greet sighed softly in the crowd. Logically speaking, the experimental group and the control group should be served by different dragon beasts. Natural mating and reproduction. After sperm and egg retrieval, they are naturally combined and implanted into the body. After sperm and eggs are collected, mass reproduction techniques are used to promote them to become fertilized eggs and then implanted in the body. The fertilized egg is developed into a cell mass of 16 cells using the mass reproduction technique and then implanted into the body. In a strong energy environment, mass reproduction is used to combine and develop sperm and eggs. At least these groups should be set up, with at least 2 female dragon beasts in each group, the more, the better. If possible, it is best to ensure that the race and level of the male and female dragon beasts are as consistent as possible. Only in this case can we judge which technical path is most suitable and can breed the most and strongest young dragons. But there is no way now. The dragon clan is willing to provide only a few dragon beasts, 2 pairs, which can only be used to test one technical route, and can only produce 2 results, successful pregnancy/failed pregnancy. Alas, I can only hope that this experiment will go smoothly, and that these dragons will be more generous. After the first 4 dragon beasts successfully conceive and lay eggs, more dragon beasts can be sent for them to do experiments. He silently entered the follow-up plan into the core of meditation, and after the preliminary experiment was successful, he spoke to the dragon clan. They will definitely agree, Gretel thought, without dragons, they don't want to give birth to more and stronger offspring. Anivia, work harder. Anivia bowed slightly and asked the 3 dragons to follow her into the laboratory. Of course, they were standing outside the sterile operating room and could only use their mental power to carefully explore. Then, release the mass reproduction spell, cast the spell carefully one by one, and then observe carefully under the microscope. Sure enough, visible to the naked eye, the fertilized egg began to divide and split. Fertilized egg number 1 has completed its division. Fertilized egg number 2 has completed its division. Number 3 split is complete. Number 4. Number 5. She straightened up, looked at Gretel with her shining eyes, then bowed slightly and saluted the emerald dragon Tana. It can be seen under a microscope that fertilized eggs number 4 and number 5 in a strong energy environment divide faster, discard less fragments during the division process, and are more likely to develop into healthy offspring. So, the next step is to move all these fertilized eggs into the mother's body. The cat saw a project to help farmers and poverty alleviation today. The cat was so happy. It is said that the cat placed an order for Sichuan cherries today, the local cherries that I missed during the lockdown last year, and then I discovered that the goods were shipped from Liangshanyi Autonomous Prefecture. To obtain improved seeds, we need to teach local farmers to plant, harvest, package and sell, open Dobeo stores and live broadcast rooms to sell goods, and open up transportation channels. SF cold chain transports from Liangshan to Chengdu by land, and then air transports from Chengdu to all parts of the country. It is really not easy to get through this road. Every step must be taught and hard work must be invested. Only then can local farmers make money from this. And how fast is the delivery speed? I placed an order yesterday, and it showed waiting for collection at 3 p.m. today, and it was ready for collection at 5 p.m. It said it would be delivered the day after tomorrow. So amazing. To run through the entire production, marketing, and transportation route, people who develop this industry have put in so much effort. In remote areas of the country, there are people like this working silently. Thank you all. Although I don't know who you are awesome. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1525. Red Ramon confirmed pregnancy. 5 fertilized eggs were transplanted, and 4 developed normally. Emerald Ramon confirms pregnancy. 4 fertilized eggs were transplanted, and all 4 developed normally. The gestation time is unknown. How many viable eggs can be produced is unknown. Whether it can be hatched successfully is unknown. After hatching, whether it can successfully awaken its true name, what true name will be awakened by the offspring of the dragon beast. Even so, Emerald Dragon Tana is quite satisfied. Regardless of whether the following issues are resolved or not, the 2 female dragon beasts used as test subjects are at least pregnant. I'm pregnant. The dead girl has been married for more than 100 years, but she has never been pregnant with a dragon egg, not even once. Thank you for your hard work. You achieved outstanding results. She took a step forward, stretched out her hands, and tried to shake Anavia's hand. Halfway through, he suddenly stopped, turned around, and solemnly shook hands with Gretel. Although Anivia is operating the project, this project was taken over by Master Nordmark and is also under the control of Master Nordmark. Miss Anivia and the other magicians who helped out came to him for advice if they had any questions. Wherever there was a problem with the project, he was the one who finally got to the bottom of it. When it comes to serious matters, you still have to talk to the project leader. You have given me hope of increasing the fertility rate of dragons. Please, guys, do it for Alanis. You can negotiate any compensation you want. Wait a minute, we still need to further improve our research, and we hope that you and other dragon clans can provide more conditions. What? Greet was calm and composed. He first called Anivia over, and then invited several high-level mages to listen. Then he explained the experimental plan he had planned before. After saying that, shut up and look at the other person calmly. Will you agree? You will definitely agree, right? Madam, you don't want your daughter and son-in-law's first pregnancy to be unable to survive, and end up with a miscarriage, or the eggs will not hatch, or the hatched dragons will not be able to awaken their true names, right? Hold it, you must not say these words, in addition to saying it too much like a threat, It also smells too harsh. Jade Dragon Tana frowned. Four dragon beasts that have reached adulthood. She has exhausted her connections, including promises, begging, and coercion, all the tricks she can come up with. When the Nordmark mage asked for dozens of dragon beasts, she didn't even mention that they should be the same kind of dragon beasts. There may not be that many on the entire dragon island, just dozens of adult dragon beasts. This is her ability. Out of range. Such a large number may turn the entire dragon island upside down. Well, I fully understand why you need so many dragon beasts, and I also agree with your need for further experiments, she explained to Greet with a headache. But, wanting so many dragon beasts is not something I can do alone. I'm afraid I need the legendary dragons to meet and agree before communicating with other dragon clans. Can you? She looked at Gretel tentatively. Could you please write an article to describe the previous results and future research ideas? We might as well ask the elders to read it first. If you have any questions, we can ask you for further advice. Writing a paper, I understand that. Common thing. Gretel nodded in agreement without thinking. Okay. Give me a few days to sort out the information and organize the text. Besides, I also need to observe the pregnancy process of the dragon beast before I can write it all down. It won't take more than a day or two. After a project is completed, there must be a paper as the result. Whether it is published or not published, I am afraid this thing is not suitable for publication in any article of arcane or magic, and it is not like the Dragon Clan will have a journal, at least it is a summary. With the summary, the expenses for the previous period were also explained. Then apply for the next phase of project funds, project support, national natural resources, etc., then it will be easier to talk, right? Besides, he didn't have to write it himself, leave it all to Anivia. After he finished writing it, he would take a look at it with his own eyes. He might need to modify some things, control the follow-up direction, and submit it directly. What are students used for? That's what it's for. Once you become a teacher, project leader, or corresponding author, it's time to put your legs up, let the students do the work, and enjoy the blessings yourself. He promised well verbally, and as soon as Tana turned around, she naturally handed over the task to Anivia. The teacher has a destiny, and the disciple has no reason to shirk it. Anivia accepted the order without hesitation. The next day, she brought an outline and passed it to Greet. She immediately immersed herself in filling in the content. The experiments are all done by hand, there is no fraud, the ideas are smooth, the experimental records are complete, and there are many points to write about. Write hard. Anvia went into retreat to code, correct, and write papers in retreat. Starting early and going late at night, while paying attention to the pregnancy signs of the two female dragon beasts, it only took 3 days to finish a half-foot thick stack of papers and handed them to Greet. Even taking into account the different font sizes for handwriting and printing, such a thick stack cannot keep up with a doctoral thesis, but it can catch up with 2 master's theses. Greet was very satisfied and didn't even need to make any changes. He made a copy and stored it in the Mage Tower, then handed the original manuscript to Emerald Dragon Tana. Watching the giant dragon reveal its original form, go up through the clouds and fog, and go far away in a short time. He looks very anxious. I wonder if this information can impress the legendary dragons and get them to allocate more resources. I wonder if Elder Batista, as well as his future father-in-law and future mother-in-law, will speak for him. By the way, the most important thing is, how many of the dragons on Dragon Island and outside Dragon Island have been unable to conceive for years and need to use this method to get children. As long as there are one more pair of dragons, his research will have one more pair of sponsors. If he could alert 10 pairs of legendary dragons, or even 5 pairs of legendary dragons, or 5 pairs of mature dragons, he would probably have no worries about the dragon beasts and other research resources he wanted. Maybe. Can we also talk to the dragon clan, advance some research funds, and pay the wages of the magicians in the mage tower? Gretel was happily planning, and he communicated with Tolling and sent the paper to Nevis. Well, there is no need to think about publishing or anything for the time being. The in-depth cooperation between the Parliament and the Dragon Clan cannot be exposed for the time being. However, the progress of the cooperation must be reported to the family in a timely manner so that the magicians in the council can assess the situation. In addition, artificial insemination and other things can also be used on humans. How many nobles are infertile? So, what did little Greet do again? Gretel's current paper, even if it is not published, will be immediately forwarded to the leaders of various schools of thought. The legends stationed in Nevis each received a copy, and the news was sent directly to the Elf Island, and the Lord of Thunder and Burbo each had a copy. Baebo was okay. He flipped through the paper, tisk tsked twice. Now we really have to tie the Dragon Clan to the chariot, and continue to work hard. Work harder, speed up, the Well of Eternity is finished, go back to Nevis and build another one. Even if you can't make it, you still have to do the teacher's job. How long has it been since there was no legend stationed in the plasticity department? The Lord of Thunder turned over the papers, but his expression was very exciting. Page after page, the expressions on the faces kept changing, and there was even a faint crackling sound all around. Christine, what's wrong with you? A gentle, cool voice sounded from the window. The Lord of Thunder was slightly startled and grabbed the paper with his backhand. It's okay, I'm just reading the paper. Are you finished here? Can I go for a walk with you? What kind of paper can make you have such a reaction? The beads on the door curtain collided with each other, and the elf princess opened the curtain and entered. Can I take a look? Hey, is it little Gretel's paper? What achievements has he made? As he spoke, he picked it up and looked at it. After reading the title, read the abstract. After reading the abstract, read the table of contents. After reading the table of contents, turn directly to the end to read the conclusion and extended discussion. As he looked at it, the melting pink color spread from his cheeks to his ears. Little Greet, what on earth is he thinking? Is he insinuating something? As we all know, once you advance to a legend, it becomes a very troublesome thing to have descendants. And the fertility rate of the elves has never been high. What does little Greet want to do with this research? Judging from the research direction pointed out at the end of his paper, it is to reach the legendary stage and solve the fertility problem of the legendary dragon. If it can solve the fertility problem of the legendary dragon, the fertility problem of the legendary humans and elves, then it will definitely be a piece of cake. Of course, the premise of everything is that before the little guy intervenes, or before they seek help from outside, they cannot give birth normally on their own and they really want a child. Ahem, I don't think it's really. The Lord of Thunder tried to maintain a serious face and answered seriously. After a pause, he took another step forward and took the elf princess's arm. Otherwise, we should work harder. Gretel didn't know that after his paper was sent to Yangju Island, it was understood in a completely different direction. In the past few days, in addition to rotating from group to group, understanding and supervising the progress of each group, he was just waiting eagerly. When can Dragon Clan finish reading the paper? When can I find him? How many resources can be provided? It's best to make a list in advance and write it down in advance so that when you ask for research resources from the Dragon Clan, you won't be in vain. By the way, let each group quickly report what they need. Waiting and waiting, waiting until his neck grew longer, waiting until the floor of the mage tower was almost worn away, but still did not see the dragon coming down, Gretel couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. With the Dragon Clan's reaction speed and their habit of sleeping for years and decades at a time, it wouldn't take that long. Have you spent all your time catching the legendary dragon to get out of bed? After waiting and waiting, until the flowers withered, and when the dragon eggs of the two female dragon beasts could be clearly sensed, Trey finally waited for Tana, who flew down in a hurry. As soon as he arrived at the mage tower, he immediately rushed to Gretel. "Master Nordmark, please come with me to Sky Dragon City once. The elders want to hear your face-to-face statement." "Oh, okay." "Wait," Gretel quickly called to the female apprentice. "Annavi, get ready and go to heaven with me."